Welcome to Political Reconstruction. I'm your host, Garrison Douglas. We got a good show planned for you today, all right? We got Obama. We got Michelle Nunn. And we got what the election's about for 2014, all right? So we got a lot of great stuff planned for you. So it took us some time to figure out what exactly we're going to talk about. We got 30 minutes and a year's worth of topics to discuss. So you're welcome. So we're just going to go ahead and jump right into this, okay? So President Obama returns home. Northwestern University in Illinois steps up to the plate and tries to swing a curveball, all right? A nice curveball is coming his way. He's got ISIS. He's got Ebola. He's got a lot of stuff going on right now. He's got immigration issues. Everything that he's tried to do, he hasn't been able to accomplish this year. But what he has done, and touted in 2012 and 11, and will continue to tout until the rest of his presidency ends, is what? The economy. So he takes a swing at this curveball that is ISIS, Ebola, immigration. And let's see if he hits. Listen to this clip of him touting his record on Obamacare.
In the decade before the Affordable Care Act, double-digit premium increases were common. CEOs called them one of the biggest challenges to their competitiveness. And if your employer didn't drop your coverage to avoid these costs, they might pass them on to you and take them out of your wages. Today, we have seen a dramatic slowdown in the rising cost of health care. When we passed the Affordable Care Act, the critics were saying, what are you doing about cost? Well, let me tell you what we've done about costs. If your family gets your health care through your employer, premiums are rising at a rate tied for the lowest on record. And what this means for the economy is staggering. If we hadn't taken this on, and premiums had kept growing at the rate they did in the last decade, the average premium for family coverage today would be $1,800 higher than they are. Now, most people don't notice it, but that's $1,800 you don't have to pay out of your pocket or see vanish from your paycheck. That's like an $1,800 tax cut. That's not for folks who signed up for Obamacare. That's the consequences of some of the reforms that we've made.
Now, the president did have a little bit of, I guess, what some people are calling a political gaffe. Trying to turn focus away from ISIS and immigration and Ebola makes him seem, apparently to some people, that he is, I guess, uninformed or unaware of the serious issues that people are concerned about. And he's talking about the economy while people are concerned about Ebola. So this has been something that some people, specifically Republicans, have tried to jump on. But that's not even the only thing that they've jumped on. They jumped on one specific portion of his whole entire speech. And you know what? We're going to play this clip first, and then I'm going to talk about this a little bit later as soon as the clip's done. All right? So take a listen to this clip that Republicans have fixated on.
I'm not on the ballot this fall. Michelle's pretty happy about that. But make no mistake, these policies are on the ballot. Every single one of them. This isn't some official campaign speech or political speech, and I'm not going to tell you who to vote for, although I suppose it's kind of implied. But what I have done is laid out my ideas to create more jobs and to grow more wages. And I've also tried to correct the record because, as I said, there's a lot of noise out there.
Now, this clip right here, that part of the speech, very quick, We played a minute of it, but they're really focused on that first 30 seconds. They're really focused on the fact of the economic policies. The president, many of his own party members have even criticized him as essentially putting his foot in his mouth for basically making a line like that. Here is an attack ad from Kansas for the U.S. Senate race using the president's own words in this ad. Take a listen.
I'm Pat Roberts, and I approve this message.
Trillions in new debt. Obamacare. Nearly 10 million Americans unemployed. Now Barack Obama says,
I'm not on the ballot this fall. But make no mistake, these policies are on the ballot. Every single one of them.
Obama's candidate for Senate in Kansas? Greg Orman. A vote for Greg Orman is a vote for the Obama agenda.
Make no mistake, these policies are on the ballot.
Now, the GOP for months have been trying to use both Vice President Joe Biden's own words against him. They've been trying to use the president's words against him. And what the GOP, Republican and the Republican Party have been trying to really hone in on is the fact that when it comes to the president's approval ratings, he's over 52%. 52%, according to the most recent poll done by Gallup, has Americans disapproving of the work he's done. So whether or not the president has a great economic record that he's trying to put out there, 52% of Americans still feel he hasn't done a good job. So when the president is out there speaking and saying that he's done a great job, he's added more jobs, the private sector's added more jobs, we've cut the deficit. When he's saying these things, which are factual, these things are true. Now, the only thing that can be skewed will be the unemployment numbers. The unemployment numbers you're using don't include, of course, job force or job participation rate. It shows just people who have dropped off and people who are employed. So slightly skewed. Estimated real unemployment is around 12%. If you're starting to include part-time and all the factors that are necessary to truly understand where our unemployment rate is. But Republicans have truly been focusing on this and the fact that the president has said that his economic policies that Republicans and some independents feel have failed us are on the ballot, and that it takes a Democrat to pass those policies, it's going to hurt. The president has not realized at this moment that he has to be careful on what he says if he wants his party to win this November, which moves us into what this election really is about. Because it takes us to really understand what it's going to take for either the Republican Party to take control of the Senate and what it's going to take for Democrats to keep control of the Senate. It's going to be extremely important. So what is this election about? That's the real question. And they've been doing polling for what's the most important issue, and it's so hard. It's so hard to find out what the most important issue is out there. Because where 10% of people may say Obamacare is the most important issue to them, but 60% of people feel that it's their second most important issue, Obamacare isn't going to appear as the number one issue. It's just not. Even if it is, or it's not going to appear as the most important issue. Not saying that it isn't and not saying that it is. But that's, even if 60% of people say it's an important issue, but not the number one issue, it's going to be skewed. It's been increasingly hard to find exactly what the most important issues are. So, but we've done the best we can and taken together poll numbers from Gallup, from CNBC, from Fox News. We've combined all of these to try and figure out what the most important issues are for each party. What's going to make sure that Republicans vote Republican and what's going to make sure Democrats vote Democrat. or independents vote Republican, independents vote Democrats. What is out there? So we've broken it up into 3 points per party. So for Republicans, first thing, the economy. When it comes to tax cuts, people will vote for Republicans if they're proposing tax cuts. It's clear. They're looking for conservative policies. They're looking for budget cuts. They're looking for tax cuts. They're looking for cuts. That's what they want to hear. If you're wanting to vote for Republican, that's what you're wanting to hear. Okay? You don't want to hear that the minimum wage is being increased. You don't want to hear that. You don't want it to happen. That's why you're voting Republican. That's why people are voting Republican. So when the Republican Party is saying that they don't want to refuse to pass or increase the minimum wage, that's a major reason why. Because Republicans don't want it. Their constituents who are Republicans don't want it. The second thing, and this is crucial, foreign policy and how America deals with ISIS. It's extremely important. We've had former defense secretaries, members of the Syrian task force come out and say earlier today that we cannot win with airstrikes alone. So this is crucial for Republicans. If Republicans are seen as the ones that are ahead of the ball on this, Republicans have traditionally always been seen as the best party to lead during war. They just are. So they've been perceived politically as best on defense and best on war, even if they're not as experienced in war, or say even if the candidate isn't as experienced in fighting wars or military as another candidate who may be a Democrat. The party itself has been seen as stronger on defense and stronger on during wartime. So Republicans can prove that their foreign policy is going to be stronger and better, if they'll do what it takes. Then we're looking at people leaning towards more Republicans. And the last thing, immigration. Republicans want a fence. Republicans want tighter immigration laws. They're not looking to fix it. They're not looking. In fact, really, they don't even mind at this point, not even touching it. To them, they feel fine. Honestly, if you built them a fence today, they could care less about immigration laws. That's not their focus. While it's an important issue in the sense that they don't want anyone coming from outside this country getting a job. Honestly, here's their problem. Well, not their problem, but here's where they are right now. And this is a 100% honest opinion of mine. Purely opinion, not really based off of statistics or anything like that, but just an opinion or observation that I've made. Republicans would not care if an immigrant had come over here and gotten a job if they were a citizen. If an immigrant came here legally, did their time, filed all the right paperwork, passed the test, and became a U.S. citizen, they would not care. To them, that person will always be an immigrant. An immigrant that is taking jobs from hardworking Americans. That is what the Republican Party is looking at right now. That's my opinion. You can take it or you can leave it. It's purely and entirely up to you. But to me, based off of what I've heard from the party, what I've heard from their candidates, the hate, the words that have been spewed from their mouths towards immigrants, whether it's illegal or legal, it solidifies that opinion of mine, almost to the fact where I feel like it's even a fact. So for those of you, and for those out there who are leaning towards Republicans, those are the three issues that Republicans you can look at or look for on the campaign trail. Republican candidates are going to look for that. They're going to be speaking on really those three topics. You may hear focus mainly on the economy and foreign policy, because those are the two things that are going on right now. Immigration died down, I guess you could say, since, the whole border crisis and ISIS and everything kind of changed. News stories changed, so their focus may not truly be the whole entire time, but they'll mention it. I can tell you this. They will mention it on their speeches. There's no getting around that. Those are the top three topics that we were able to put together. They're going to mention that in their speeches. But moving on to Democrats. Democrats share the same exact number one issue, the economy and wages. Democrats want an increase in the minimum wage. That's what people are looking for if they're going to vote for Democrats. That's the most important issue for Democrats right now. Raising the minimum wage and creating a fair working condition for both men and women. Then on top of that, they're wanting more jobs. But that's the same as Republicans. They want an increase in jobs. They want a better unemployment rate. They want an overall improved economy. And that goes without saying. There's a reason why the old cliche has always been, it's the economy, stupid. There's a reason for that. So I'm not entirely surprised that this is a reason or a number one issue for both sides of the aisle. The other thing, which is unavoidable, is women's issues. Birth control. Ever since the Hobby Lobby case, Democrats have gone on a rampage to ensure that they are known as the party for women. Equal pay for equal work, access to birth control, or I should say the same access to birth control through their health insurance as men have for pills such as Viagra through their health insurance. There are a whole lot of women issues, but those are the big ones right there. Equal pay and access to birth control through their insurance. Those are some major ones right there. And I can guarantee you that there's not a single Democrat out there, whether they're in a purple, blue, or red state, who is not going to try and pull those cards out. They're going to do it because that's what Democrats care about. The third thing, which has been going on for years for Democrats, has been Medicare and Social Security. Democrats want to hear that Medicare is going to be fixed and Social Security is going to be fixed and that we're going to live happily ever after. We all know it's not going to happen, but that's what people want to hear. That's what Democrats want to hear. They want to hear a solution to fixing it. So Democrats say that they're for a long-lasting Medicare and long-lasting Social Security system. They're going to get the vote. Whether they say how it's going to happen, they're going to get the vote. There's no getting around it. It's purely politics. It's purely stats and, voter polling. It's exactly what it's going to be. It's exactly how it's going to go down. So that's what this economy, that's what this election's about. It's about the economy. It's about foreign policy. It's about women's rights, women's issues. It's about Social Security. These things are what the election's about. This election, it will entirely affect what will happen in 2016. There's no getting around it. If Republicans lose again on these issues, it'll completely, actually, I can't even say that. I want to say that'll completely change them. But we've said that before. We said that back in 2012. We said that back in 2010. That if they lose, that they'll change their attitude and they'll move forward with a new attitude. And we see the same, if not worse, attitude after each election. But if Democrats lose, you're going to look at a more cautious, a less headstrong, and a more politically focused Democratic Party than content focused. That's what you'll see. And this race has been tearing down everyone, which there's no one who is more at risk than Democrats running in southern states, which brings me to Michelle Nunn. Michelle Nunn has, we occasionally mention her on our program because I'm here in Georgia, but Michelle Nunn has been running the Democratic ticket. She's been doing well. She's beating people, specifically David Perdue. She's rising above expectations, and she's doing a phenomenal job, which means it's time for some real attack ads. David Perdue issued an attack ad earlier last month. Well, you know what? Let me not even go to detail. Let's just roll the clip.
In her campaign plan, Michelle Nunn admits she's too liberal, and her foundation gave money to organizations linked to terrorists. So Nunn needed to fool Georgians to win. She attacked David Perdue with ads that independent fact-checkers called mostly false and a stretch. David Perdue spent his career creating thousands of jobs. Perdue will grow this economy and bring common sense to Washington.
I'm David Perdue. I approve this message.
Now, David Perdue has gotten in some serious trouble from this ad. He's been called out by George H.W. Bush's son. He's been called out by Michelle Nunn. He's been called out by the Washington Post. He's been called out by NBC. He's been called out by just about anyone you can think of about this ad, especially during a time of war. And these type of accusations cannot go. We can't just let them slide by without at least discussing them. So he's been called out on them. Now, Michelle Nunn responded back with her own campaign ad that she's been running periodically throughout this past week. This is the clip right here.
David Perdue's running ads saying that while I led President Bush's Points of Light Foundation, we funneled money to terrorists. That's a terrible lie and an insult to the millions of volunteers I worked with to make a difference. David Perdue's ad has been called the worst in America, and President Bush's son called it shameful. I'm Michelle Nunn. These kind of attacks are what's wrong with politics. I'm determined to bring decency to Washington. That's why I approve this message.
Now, to me, David Perdue's ad was despicable. I agree when they call it the worst political attack ad run in this whole entire election. To accuse a candidate for political purposes of funding terrorists who wish to cause harm to our country without any real evidence is a problem. Is a major problem, and it needs to be dealt with. If there were some sort of ethic violations in campaigning, when I was running for student government in college, we had campaign ethic rules. If you broke those ethics, you lost. There was no if you got the most votes, if she got the most votes. It was you break that code of conduct in this election by smearing, by making accusations that you can't back up, by attacking people like that, you'd be done, disqualified, gone. There's no one voting for you. It's done. But yet our candidates can do the same for national and the most important offices. That was for student government. Sure, that was an important job, but that was for student government. The biggest thing you can do there is decide what clubs will do what on campus, where a few $1 million would go on campus because for student fees. That's the most you're doing. Your job is to help manage the campus for the students. That's it. But a U.S. Senate candidate, someone who has the ability to vote yay or nay on whether or not we send troops to war, and they can't conduct themselves properly during an election, that's a problem. And I agree with Michelle Nunn that this is the type of problem that is in Washington, and it does need to be fixed. Now, whether or not she is the solution to that problem, that's up for debate. But I agree with her that that's a problem. It is a problem, and that he is indeed a part of the problem. So we'll have more on that. Of course, this is something that's going to go away. There's going to be even more people who come out and do more things. It's politics, and it's the way we run our campaigns today. But before I ended the show, I wanted to end on a note that's dear to my heart. Tomorrow will be my grandmother's birthday. My grandmother, Teresa Douglas. She passed away many years ago from complications due to gallbladder cancer. Now, this being Breast Cancer Awareness Month, I know many of us are wearing the ribbons. Many of us are painting our driveways pink. Many of us are doing walks for breast cancer awareness. And there's nothing wrong with that, to me. Nothing at all. But what I want us to make sure that we're doing is we're trying to draw attention to cancer. Not just breast cancer, but cancer. Try and raise funds to help cure cancer. To help improve treatments for cancer. Not just breast cancer, not just skin cancer, just cancer. That's where our focus should be. My grandmother died of complications from a disease that was rare, extremely rare. There was no funding for research on her specific strain of cancer. There was no walks. There was no telethons. There was none of that. It was merely a disease that she had and she died from. So I encourage all of us during this month to take the time to really pay attention to not just one type of disease, but a disease that affects all families, children, adults, grandparents, mothers, fathers, sons, daughters, brothers, and sisters. It affects all of us, be it pancreatic cancer, skin cancer, breast cancer, gallbladder cancer. There are so many different types of cancers out there. We need to address each and every one of them. We don't have the ability anymore. We can't keep going further into this idea that we can pick and choose which disease we care about the most. Which one is, quote unquote, sexier to talk about on TV? Which one's more glamorous? You know? So let's take a time, everyone. Let's take this month to think about everyone who is being. We have one more announcement to make. As of, we've actually been in discussion. We've been in talks with a program called Regal Post. And we have made it official that Regal Post will be acquiring Political Reconstruction this month. We will no longer be a private entity, and we will now be a program for this news organization. So our time slot will remain the same, but we will also take a short hiatus. More likely, it won't be any more than just 1 week or one episode, but we will come back. We'll be weekly instead of bi-weekly. We'll be back on at Wednesdays at 6 p.m. So just listen out. Check our Facebook page. We'll be posting updates through there. Check our Twitter page at Politics at Home. And check our Google Plus page. Follow us on all of those and stay connected with us. That's where we get all the great information and what's going on throughout the week. All right? Again, I'm Garrison Douglas. This is Political Reconstruction. Have a great evening.